And good evening. Welcome, one and all, to the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide on the Vida television network. Honored you have chosen to spend some time with us this evening. I am your host, Chris Salcedo. I am your liberty-loving Latino. Do not confuse me with loudmouth leftist Latinos out there. I actually love my country, the United States of America. Coming up in this program, we have a lot of ground to cover, from the economy to some current events. And also, we will talk to somebody brand spanking new that I haven't introduced you guys to yet. This is somebody who is an old friend of the Chris Salcedo Show. As a matter of fact, she has been with the program, I think, a week after we started the Chris Salcedo Show on the Blaze Radio Network. She joined us. So she's been with us almost since the very beginning. That was September of 2013. Mary Ramirez will be here. And she has a lot of talent, folks. She can write. She has a conservative political perspective from a female's point of view, something I can't offer, of course. And she has one other thing that I don't. She can do something that I can't. And I'll leave you guys in suspense to figure out what that is, or to reveal it to you guys in the next segment. In the meantime, this is how you get in touch with the Chris Salcedo Show. ChrisSalcedo.com, ChrisSalcedo.com. That's where you find out how to get in touch with us on the radio. That's where you find out about my book, Liberty Rises. That's where you find about anything you need to know about the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide, Chris Salcedo Show, period. Find us on social media as well, on Twitter at Chris Salcedo TX. As I said, a lot to talk about this evening, and we'll start off on the economy. That's Trish Regan from Fox Business, and she was talking with Brett Baer on Fox News Channel. This is the unsung story of the first 10 months of the Trump administration, is that the economy is showing some fundamental strength that we have not had in the last, 8 years under President Obama. And Mr. Obama, you've got to tip the cap to him. If you're a leftist out there, if you are someone who digs in harming the U.S. economy, Barack Obama did it better than anybody. He arrested the biggest, most powerful economic engine in world history, the United States economy, and he did it in grand leftist fashion. But things are now back on the right track for America, at least tentatively speaking. And Trish Regan was talking with Brett Baer, and she said things are good. Decent jobs numbers, a little skewed because of the hurricanes, but the fundamentals are strong. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates up to 1% from a quarter. So this is a belief that the economy can handle these kinds of things. But she had a caveat, and I'm going to give a caveat of my own here.
The one caveat to all of this I would point out, Brett, is that the Fed, remember all the money printing that they had engaged in over the last 8 years, they still need to unwind that balance sheet. And if they start doing that and buying up some of this securities and debt that they previously had put out there, then that could actually be a risk. But fundamentally, the economy is stronger.
Yeah, stronger than it was the last 8 years. Still needs to get stronger. What I think this economy needs is tax reform. Now, look, I would love to be able to tell you guys the Republicans are going to be able to get this done, and they did take a step forward in getting it done by the House passing a budget which will allow for reconciliation. Over in the Senate, it's kind of wonky. Just so you know, they did take a step forward. But I do not underestimate John McCain's ability to basically thumb his nose at the country so he can be a maverick, and others like him inside of the United States Senate. So hope springs eternal. Let's hope things get done. Now, there is no hope for her. That's Nancy Pelosi. And last week, the worst mass shooting in our nation's history, her political party decided, hey, let's get political, because that's what we do. And they got political, raising money and keeping their base, glued to the television and glued to their checkbooks by walking over the bodies, in my opinion, of 59 people who had lost their lives, and 527 people who were injured. It's unconscionable. It's Democrats. It's unconscionable. So in the wake of all of this politicizing going on from the Democrat Party, they have centered in on something called bump stocks. Now, I don't think we talked an awful lot about this last week. And I put it out on the radio shows that I wanted some folks' opinions. And I had military guys calling me up who have used bump stocks, police officers who would call me up using these bump stocks. And here's what it is. For those of you who are not gun aficionados, and I'm not one either, I do have weapons and I have a concealed carry permit and all that, but I'm just not an aficionado. But this stock, you take off the standard stock from, say, an AR-15, you put this bump stock on, and you do a special thing with the trigger, and whenever you pull the trigger, the concussion, the kick from the gun will force a trigger pull. And once you start, you get into this kind of action. Now, you may have heard some lawmakers erroneously say that this bump stock turns a semi-automatic into a fully automatic, and that's just not true. It's not true. They're much, much slower than an actual automatic weapon, okay? That's something you got to know. And they're not accurate. A couple of military guys and a couple of police officers called up the show saying, hey, Chris, if this guy, the Las Vegas shooter, had decided he was just going to go with a scope and a standard AR-15 or a long-range rifle and do single, one trigger pull for one bullet and aim each one, the death toll would have been much higher, they said. The injury toll may have gone down because he wasn't doing what they call spray and pray and spray, which is basically just hope you hit something. They said the death toll would have been much higher if he had gone that way. But bump stocks seem to be where Republicans and Democrats are coming together on Capitol Hill. But Democrats, because they never are, they won't be satisfied. I want you to listen to, courtesy of Fox News, these two lawmakers. One is Nancy Pelosi, an extremist liberal. The other one is Steve King, a conservative. And listen to what Nancy Pelosi says in particular, and I'll address both.
They're going to say that if you give them bump stock, it's going to be a slippery slope. I certainly hope so.
We didn't outlaw 747s after 9/11. Can anybody actually say this wouldn't have happened if we had outlawed bump stocks?
The National Rifle Association and I and several Republicans have said we got to take a look at bump stocks. Let's take a look at it. And yeah, we should. We should see what they are all about, because the vast majority of the country, the vast majority of lawmakers, I talked to a couple of congressmen, had no idea what they are. So let's look into it. And even the National Rifle Association is saying, yeah, let's examine what these are. And everybody that I've talked to a man, would banning bump stocks have stopped Las Vegas? No, it wouldn't have. Wouldn't have made a difference. The death toll would have been just as catastrophic and probably higher. Now, what about what Nancy Pelosi said? That she hopes that by the Republicans caving in on these bump stocks, that it will be a slippery slope. What does she mean by that? I think she tipped her hand right there. This is what Democrats want out of every gun tragedy. They want your weapons. They want your ability to defend yourself. There was some nutcase in the New York Times, Brett Stevens is his name, who advocated actually the repeal of the Second Amendment. I mean, this guy is an absolute buffoon. I mean, all you need do is look around the globe where governments have disarmed their people and the people are slaves to that government. The founders of this country recognized that the Second Amendment was a hedge, was a guard against tyranny, against an out-of-control government. Nancy Pelosi, an old leftist gun grab. That's all she's got, her old ideas. And that has the attention of some other people. This is Representative Linda Sanchez, Congresswoman Linda Sanchez. She's a Democrat. She's a loudmouth leftist Latina. But she said something that got her into trouble this week, and here's what she said.
We have this real breadth and depth of talent within our caucus, and I do think it's time to pass the torch to a new generation of leaders.
Oh. She's talking about Pelosi. She wants to get rid of Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer. By the way, they took Linda Sanchez here to the woodshed for that. They didn't appreciate that at all. Now, a lot of Democrats are saying this, but they're not saying it in front of a national audience the way Linda Sanchez did. I call them dinosaur Democrats, not because of their age, but because of their old and tired ideas and how long they've been in government. And the Republicans, they have their own dinosaurs, Mitch McConnell and John McCain. Listen to this. You're not going to be able to see it, but you'll be able to hear it. It's Mrs. Obama. She was at an event in Philadelphia for women. Listen to what she had to say.
I always say this. It's like, it is difficult. And politics is one of those things where you see it a lot. People hold on maybe a little bit too long.
Who do you think she was talking about? Yes, she was talking about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is probably the biggest hanger-on in the Democrat Party. She still thinks she controls it. Look at what happened on Jimmy Fallon's program, The Tonight Show. This is supposed to be a comedy show, folks. I want you to see this. And I have to warn you, for all of you folks out there with sensitive stomachs, this is cringe-worthy television.
Thank you, Hillary Clinton, for handling this difficult transition with more grace than I ever could have imagined. That being said, call me day or night and I will be there with a gallon of ice cream and 2 spoons to tell you, girl, you are so much better than him.
More grace? This is a woman who blamed everybody but herself for her loss.
Thank you, Hillary Clinton, for being the Hillary Clinton of American politics.
I was with her, I'm still with her, and right now I literally am with her.
You've been a role model and an inspiration and a voice of reason in uncertain times. I could go on, but I'd like to get right to the point. Can I give you a hug?
Oh my gosh. I told you. I warned you. This was cringe-worthy TV. That's Miley Cyrus, who used to be wholesome when she was doing stuff for Disney, and then decided to start taking her clothes off in front of perfect strangers. that she was inspired by Hillary Clinton. Oh my God. Oh, hold on. I want to rip out my mind's eye. That's just terrible. Absolutely terrible. Up next, as you can see, my good buddy Mary Ramirez pays a visit to the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide. Stick with me. Welcome back, everybody. The Chris Salcedo Show worldwide. Over my right shoulder, joining me right now is a longtime fixture of the Chris Salcedo Show, but the first time you guys here on the Vida television network are meeting her. That's Mary Ramirez, and yes, styling their hair, ever so wavy. Joining us now here on the Chris Salcedo Show. She, like I said, she has been a staple on the program on radio for an awful long time, and this is the first time you're meeting her. Welcome back to the program, Mary.
Thank you, Chris. It's good to be back. And yes, this is sort of a different format for us. I'm sort of seeing myself on the screen. Normally we're on radio only. So This is kind of new territory for us.
Exactly. You know what I wanted to, first off, is, folks, I have not addressed language yet on this program. Of course, I'm your liberty-loving Latino, but my command of the Spanish language is so-so. I'd say you designate me semi-fluent. I can curse really well in Spanish.
Of course.
And I can ask for the basics, but the lady over my right shoulder here is what we would call fluent. Speaks way better Spanish than I do. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a little bit of a game that we're going to play a little bit later on toward the end of the segment. But for all of you who may be tuning into the program for the first time, and you're seeing a Latino guy, I'm springing this on Mary, so I'm going to show you how good she is. She can actually be a translator. If she ever got offered a job, a translator for an American dignitary to Mexico. So I'm going to say a couple of things, and I'm going to let her translate, so you guys can see how good her Spanish is.
Oh boy.
She didn't
Don't do anything ridiculous, okay? I'm not that good.
She didn't know I was going to do this. So let me say. I'll go one sentence at a time so as to not make it too difficult. So we'll start right now. Welcome, everybody, to the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the Vida Television Network.
Bienvenidos a todos al Chris Salcedo Show aquí en el Vida TV Network.
You know, you could have said Salcedo with a little more, flair instead of just.
Bienvenido al Chris Salcedo Show.
Well, I know it is the Chris. It is the Chris Salcedo Show. I'm just saying. You know why I say Salcedo and not Salcedo?
Salcedo.
Yeah. Well, see, my dad would be proud of you. My God rest his soul. When I started in radio, my dad was very insistent that I pronounce my name in the proper manner. Chris Salcedo, yes. So I said, Dad, and this was 20 years ago or so. I said, I'm not going to do that, but I met him halfway. So I met him halfway with high school Spanish. So that's where Salcedo came from, because it's a little closer than Salcedo, which is what I was known as throughout my entire. I know. Don't give me that look.
No. Seriously, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Well, no, and I can't believe I never told you the story. But yeah, throughout my entire scholastic career, kindergarten through 7th or 8th grade, it was Salcedo is how they would call me. And of course, you don't look like that. I mean, I know it's wrong, and you know it's wrong, but
hey, you know what? I get it, because my last name is Ramirez, but it's Ramirez in English, so I get it.
All right, let me give you another sentence. You can say hello to the folks out there, and somewhat of a greeting. Hi, everyone. Glad to have you along for this program tonight. We got a lot to cover.
Hola a todos. Me da muchísimo gusto tenerlos todos aquí con nosotros. Vamos a hablar de muchas cosas. Tenemos muchos temas de qué hablar.
Wow. See, I told you she was good, folks. I mean, and I understood about maybe a quarter of what you just said. And I just said it. All right.
So basically, I could say whatever I want about you.
Yeah, you could. You could, honestly. Look, you know what? We've already covered an awful lot in the first segment. So this segment, and folks, we bring Mary on once a week. She's also a very gifted writer, and she will be able to basically give you guys not only a female perspective, but a female conservative's perspective on the issues of the day. And it's always typically Mary and I are on the same wavelength. She'll be writing about something that I'm already talking about to you guys during the week. So, Mary, what is on your plate this week?
Well, Chris, I wasn't going to write about Las Vegas because I felt like so much of what needed to be said had already been said by so many of my colleagues. We know the statistics around gun control. We know that the left-wing narrative about, the effectiveness of gun control is really categorically false, demonstrably false, as we know in Chicago. So I didn't feel I needed to do that. But as I was listening to the same old tired arguments over and over and over again, the thought just kept popping in my head. I'm sure pops in your head. Why is it that the American left gives so much of their time and energy to guns? And we never hear them talk as voraciously about knives or cars or pressure cookers, phone tool, or anything else that's used to harm people. I mean, look at Europe, for example, in the last year. I don't think we can name a single terrorist attack in the last year that's been perpetrated by a gun. I think the last one was the last one Paris, like 2 years ago? The rest of them have been cars.
I think there was a less, resulting in less carnage. There were several others in Europe, maybe not in France, but in Europe since then. And you know what? You bring a fantastic point is even in the Orlando shooting, where you had a radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorist shooting up a gay bar because radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorists hate gays. What did the left blame? They didn't blame radicalized Islamic fundamentalist terrorist hatred of gays.
Blame the gun.
They blame the gun. And good grief, man. And what about this? What is it that we hear when the left wing wants to defend illegal immigration and illegal alien felons here in this country, from whatever part of the world they come from? What is the number one refrain is, well, Mary, that illegal aliens, they commit crimes at a far less rate than Americans do, as somewhat of justification for allowing illegal immigration to happen.
To break the law.
But somehow when it comes to guns, and statistically it's provable that only a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of lawful gun owners commit crimes, somehow the left doesn't go down that road, and I wonder why.
Well, right. That was my question as well. As I listened to some of these statistics, I listened to a report from a woman who works at 538 who spent, I think it was 3 months, looking at the annual gun deaths in the United States. I think it's like 30-some thousand. And she broke it down. And the vast, vast majority have nothing to do with, as you said, legal gun owners and law-abiding citizens. It's suicides, it's gang violence, it's accidents, it's all these things. Very, very little of it has to do with something like what we saw in Las Vegas. So, the thought that just kept going through my head was, why does the left love to ignore that? It's a fact. It's not like, well, gee, I feel like guns really aren't that dangerous. It's a fact that we don't have the problem that they say that we do. So why is it? And when you look at places where they've implemented these gun control provisions en masse, like Chicago, that has some of the strictest gun control provisions in the nation, it's demonstrably proven that those don't work. So why is it that they ignore that? And I thought, you know what? I know you know this. I know that we all on the pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment side know this deep down, but I don't hear people talking about it. And that is, we need to go back to our founding, to look at what the founding fathers were thinking about, their thought processes. They put that Second Amendment into writing. And it wasn't necessarily to, simply allow someone like myself to protect myself against, a larger man or intruder, or to allow my husband to keep our family safe at night if there's a thief that comes in the house. It wasn't just about personal defense. It was guns are, as you know, the great equalizer, right? For the reasons I just mentioned. It gives me, a smaller statured woman the ability to fight off a larger man, right?
Not only that, consider that when the founding fathers constructed the Second Amendment, what was the primary armament for the individual? It was a musket, correct?
Right.
Consider this. And there was a piece in the Daily Signal last week that actually addressed this. Mm-hmm. That when the Second Amendment was constructed, a man could walk out of his house, or a woman out of their house, with a musket and be equally armed as anybody in the Continental Army.
You read my mind.
With an AR-15 today that I could walk out of the house with, I would still be at a deficit with anybody in our armed forces. And so when everybody's talking about restricting our gun rights further, I'm leaning toward expanding them and getting us back on par. Now, I'm not talking about getting a tank, because the rank and file colonist, or newly minted American back then, didn't have access to a cannon, but they had access to a musket. So what I'm saying is, maybe the conversation to get back to our founding principles might be getting the American citizen back on par with being able to be comparable to our armed forces for a myriad of reasons. A check on a tyrannical government, a check on perhaps foreign governments who might want to get a little squirrely by trying to invade the United States. The Second Amendment was so multi-purposed, there's a good reason for it, and the founders in their genius recognize that.
Well, and as you said earlier in the show, you and I are often on the same wavelength, and that's exactly what the piece is about. That the founders had in mind this idea that if you were able to use guns as an equalizer between the citizenry and their government, the government could never get so big and too powerful so as to potentially overtake them. And I want to read, actually, I've got some quotes here. I want to read them because I don't want to screw this up. So Noah Webster said, "Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as they are in almost every kingdom of Europe. The supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword, because the whole body of the people are armed and constitute a force superior to any band of regular troops that can on any pretense be raised in the United States." And, I quote other founders in there as well, including George Mason, who said that, what did he say? He said that the British Parliament was advised by the then governor of Pennsylvania that the best way to keep the American colonies in check was to disarm the people, that it would be the best and most effectual way to enslave them, but that they shouldn't do it openly, but weaken them and let them sink gradually by totally disusing and neglecting the militia. So, I'm not suggesting, and I know you're not suggesting either, that we should be looking for opportunities to overthrow the federal government because we have guns. No, God forbid. I hope that never happens. But the point was,
it's a check. It's a check.
It's a check. The founding
on tyranny. Yes.
Right. The founding fathers were, as they laid out our government, which was so new in the world.
Yep.
Nothing had ever been done like it. It was all about checks and balances.
No, I agree.
And so when you think about the American left, what is it that the American left loves more than Planned Parenthood? They love massive government.
all-powerful government.
All-powerful government.
I have submitted to on this program on several occasions that the reason why the left is so upset about Donald Trump's victory is that when Barack Obama left office, thank God in heaven, when Barack Obama left office, they lost the ability to tell us what to do. And liberals love to tell other people what to do. That is almost their second favorite thing. One more example. You cited a lot of quotes from the past. We also have an example in our own hemisphere, a couple of examples of what happens when only the government has the guns. Look at Venezuela. Look at Mexico. Mexico's people are like lambs to the slaughter when it comes to ruthless drug cartels. The Mexican government doesn't allow its citizenry to have guns to defend themselves, and they are defenseless. What's the name of your piece?
Sure, Chris. Well, you can find it on my blog, actually, which most of your viewers probably aren't familiar with at this point. It's afuturefree.com, and I will tweet that out after the segment. But here's why the American left hates. I'm sorry. Here is the real reason why the American left hates the Second Amendment, and that is, as I said, up on my blog, tweet it out after we finish up here.
afuturefree.com. That's where you folks go. Now, this is the little game I was making reference to earlier. Mary, every single week, is going to come onto the program and say a typical American phrase, but she's going to say it in Spanish, and it's going to be up to me to try to show you my deficiency in Spanish. I'm going to try to translate what she says. Now, I'm not going to guess. I'm going to try to guess right away on the air, but if I don't get it, I'm going to leave it out to you guys in the audience to solve it for me, and then we'll give the answer on next week's program. So, Mary, fire away. Give us this week's phrase.
Well, and just so the people know here, too, we are not translating to how it should be. We're translating word for word.
Verbatim, yes.
So to those of you Spanish speakers out there, some of this, maybe not this week's, but some of this may be a little wonky. Okay, Chris, so we're starting out easy this week.
Okay.
All right? Un centavo ahorrado es un centavo ganado.
Say that to me one more time.
Un centavo ahorrado es un centavo ganado.
In for a penny, in for a pound?
You're close with the penny.
Okay. Next week, folks. Next week, jump onto the Chris Salcedo Show, our social media, which I'll give you here in a minute. And you guys can give us the answer because your humble host here doesn't know. Mary Ramirez, always a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you to everyone, all of our new viewers. So excited to be with you.
All right. That's Mary Ramirez. Again, her blog is located at afuturefree.com. Her latest piece, I will retweet it out on my social media, on my Twitter account, at Chris Salcedo TX, at ChrisSalcedotx, as in Texas. Other social media, if you want to locate us, where the radio shows are, just go to chrissalcedo.com. That's chrissalcedo.com. Hope you have a great evening, folks. We're right back here tomorrow night on the Vida Television Network. Till then, take care.